Welcome to Innovate Fort Worth, the podcast where we highlight local innovation and the people bringing those innovations to market. I'm Cameron Cushman, and this episode is a special edition of Innovate Fort Worth that we will be showing for Global Entrepreneurship Week Fort Worth 2020. And so before we begin our interview, I want to share a little bit about GEW. Global Entrepreneurship Week is a week-long set of events, activities, and competitions that happen each November that inspires millions globally to explore their potential as an entrepreneur while fostering connections and increasing collaboration within their ecosystems. Over 40,000 GEW events will be celebrated in 180 countries this week. And Fort Worth will host its own celebration with over 50 events, all completely virtual, that will cover a wide variety of helpful topics for entrepreneurs. Today we have Elyse Stoltz Dickerson, the CEO and co-founder of Eosera, a company that specializes in your ears, something we here at Innovate Fort Worth are all very familiar with. Elyse is a former longtime Alcon employee who decided to tackle an unmet medical need that most of us probably never think about: earwax impaction. Eosera was just named as one of the DFW area's rising stars by BioNorth Texas, and Elyse is also a leading advocate for female entrepreneurs in Texas. Elyse, welcome to Innovate Fort Worth.
Thanks for having me.
So I know that you and your co-founder, Joe Griffin, started your careers at Alcon, the big biotech company that focuses on products for the eyes. But how did your career begin, and why did you decide to leave and start Eosera?
So after graduate school, let me back up. Before graduate school, I was working in the retail industry, and I had been a buyer for retailers and category manager, and realized that's not what I wanted to do the rest of my life. So I went back to business school, still with no idea what I wanted to do. And when I got out, the only companies that would recruit me were retail companies. So after about a year of working for Neiman Marcus online, I made the switch to Alcon Labs. Had no idea what I was getting into, but I knew it was going to be something different and challenging.
So fashion to biotech, that's quite a switch.
Fashion to biotech, exactly. And so I started off there as an associate product manager, which was essentially part of the marketing organization. And slowly over the next 13 years, climbed my way up the corporate ladder and eventually was running almost a $2 billion business, traveling the world, launching products, building brands, and have an amazing time.
Wow, that is really fascinating. So you left Alcon and you start kind of looking around for what's next after that great 13-year career there. You started looking at unmet medical needs. How did you stumble upon earwax?
So when I left, it was in early 2015, and I had been exploring mentoring startup companies in the years leading up to 2015, and really got inspired through the Health Wildcatters in Dallas, working with some of their companies and seeing the progress they were making and the opportunities. And so when I left, I thought, you know what? I think I should try this. And Joe Griffin also left around the same time, and we had worked together hand in hand for 13 years at Alcon. And so we set out with some ideas in our head, but not anything concrete. And we spent the first 3 months really just talking to doctors. Any doctor that would take a lunch, coffee, dinner, breakfast with us, we sat down with, and we just learned about their practice, learned about pain points in the practice, and what were some conditions that they saw over and over, but didn't really have a good product or way to remedy the issues. And earwax impaction, of all things, rose to the top. With pediatricians, geriatricians, regular GPs, ENTs, didn't matter who we talked to, they all said, if you can come up with a product that will dissolve wax quickly, you've got a game changer. And so we set out. We joined Tech Fort Worth. That was one of our first moves. And we joined there because we felt like we needed an infrastructure and network to help us just lay the groundwork. You know, how do you get your books set up? How do you incorporate? How do you do just basic things that, coming from a big company, I had never had to do before? through Tech Fort Worth, we gained access to UNT Health Science Center, which was truly amazing for a very small company to have access to a laboratory, a real lab. Really helped set our company on a course for success. And so we spent the next 9 months in the lab at UNT Health Science Center. All we had was the money in our savings account, and we were formulating.
Wow.
And so that's how we got our start.
That's incredible. So you know the need. How did you go about, testing this product? Where did you get samples? What did that end up looking like early on as you sort of know the problem, but then you have to figure out how to solve it?
Right. So I love sharing this part of the story because I'm not a scientist. Joe, my business partner, he has a PhD. But what was so cool is if you turn yourself into someone that wants to learn, which, that's what I call this the learner mindset, you can become whatever you want to be, right? And so I got in there with Joe in the lab every single day, reading patents, reading medical literature, and formulating, with his guidance, of course, to create a product. And it gave me a new sense of confidence that, coming out of the core business world, that, hey, I could still learn things, I can still be creative. And so we ended up harvesting human earwax from doctors around DFW. They would send us wax in little test tubes.
Wow.
It was lovely. and then we would put that wax and line it up against competing products versus our product to see if we could break down that wax.
So there are other companies in the space, because I'm guessing that this is if it is an unmet medical need, then that's a problem that Alcon or Johnson & Johnson or whoever is addressing. But why do you think your solution has been either more effective or just different, I guess, than what else is in the market?
Yeah, so you would think that a lot of these companies are playing in this space, but they're not. And that's why we felt like we could go in and tackle the category. There's one company that had a product called Debrox. It's been on the market for decades. It was developed in the 1960s, and it was designed to soften wax over time. So if you read the box, the directions said, use twice a day for up to 4 days, and then maybe it'll soften the wax. We thought, who in this day and age is going to do that? And so we wanted to develop a product that would work quickly. And so we came up with a formulation that dissolves wax in about 15 minutes, and then you rinse it out of the ear canal. And because of the efficacy difference, and because there wasn't a lot of competition, we knew we could make a splash in the market pretty quickly.
Wow, that's fascinating. And I guess your product actually dissolves the earwax? This other product just softened it, so that's a key difference as well.
Key difference, right. And it was that data, we had video, test tube data and images that really helped convince investors that we were worth investing in.
So speaking of investors, I know you got your start when you won a business plan competition. You won $50,000 in a competition sponsored by Comerica Bank and the Dallas Entrepreneur Center, our partner in Global Entrepreneurship Week.
Yeah.
Tell me about that experience and what did you use the winnings for?
So this really was the start of our company. So we had test tube data that was compelling, and we wanted to do a human clinical trial. We were still self-funding at this point. And a cheap human clinical trial would run about $50,000. So I saw this advertisement for this business pitch competition, and I looked at Joe and I said, I'm gonna win that. And he's like, all right, let's try it. And so I spent the next, I would say, easily 2 to 3 months on this 10-minute pitch. I think it was actually 7 minutes, but getting that pitch down just perfect, practicing. And we ended up winning. And with that money, we were able to immediately start a human clinical trial and have data that is now published in peer-reviewed medical journals.
Unbelievable. And sometimes in the entrepreneurship world, they talk about, it's just a pitch competition and doesn't really do anything. In this case, it changed the trajectory of your business.
It did. And not only did it allow us to run that clinical trial, it gave us some press
Yeah.
And so it was the first time that I then had investors calling saying, are you raising money? I'm really interested. And it was a panic moment for me because I wasn't raising money yet. Like, I didn't know that step was going to come that fast.
Wow.
So I immediately had to pivot and learn how to develop a term sheet and, go out and start really raising the money.
Yeah, and it is interesting too, because I feel like sometimes when you do a pitch competition like that, it can sometimes be that company's introduction to the world, right? Nobody knows that you're working in a lab somewhere trying to solve an unmet medical need, and then all of a sudden you get exposure like that, and the world knows about you, the press writes about you, and then lo and behold, investors start calling you.
Exactly.
That's great. Very
Yeah.
cool. So tell me about the name Eosera. Where did that name come from?
So we wanted something different and trademarkable. And so Eos is the Greek goddess of dawn or new beginnings, and era is time. And so it was a time for new beginnings. We had spent, our entire career in big corporate America and wanted to start something new. So we felt like that name, at least to us, had, personal meaning.
And the URL was available, right?
And the URL was available, and the name was trademarkable.
There you go. Yeah,
it was a win-win.
That is so much of how people name companies today. It really is amazing. Okay, so what's next for Eosera? You guys going to stay in the ear space, or are you going to try to expand into other markets?
So, fast forward to today, we launched our first product in 2017, which was Earwax MD, designed to dissolve the earwax. Then, once we had success with that, we started expanding inside of ear care. So we now have a line of about 7 ear care products.
Wow.
In 14,000 stores across the nation. And so we're continuing, our goal going forward is expand that distribution. We think we've got a great lineup that really covers all the ear care needs that need to be addressed over the counter. And we're starting to dip our toe into the nasal category and explore some opportunities there.
Fantastic. So I guess you were able to take your retail experience at Neiman Marcus and apply that to getting into 14,000 stores. How did that go, and how long did it take to get that kind of distribution set up?
So this is a great story because it's another moment in entrepreneurship that you just can't plan for. We launched on Amazon and on our website, and then I was given a 10-minute meeting with the buyer from CVS. So I had 10 minutes to nail this presentation.
But that's like your top client, right? I mean, that's the
like,
number one guy you're going after,
right?
right?
They have 8,000 stores.
Right.
I mean, if you can get in there. So I flew to Florida, had 10 minutes, again, practiced that pitch, over and over and over again, and got in there and was selling one product, just Earwax MD. And at the end of the 10 minutes, I said, I really would love for you to try this in 2,000 stores and let's just test it, right? Thinking that was a huge ask.
Right, yeah.
And he said, nope, I love it. I want it in 8,000 stores and I need it in 4 months.
Whoa.
And it was a moment of pure joy and pure terror, right? Because it's like, am I going to produce enough product in the next 4 months to get it on the shelves? We made it happen.
Wow.
But a moment you can't plan for.
So you had nailed it, and then it was time to go scale it, right?
That's right. That's exactly right.
That is fantastic. So you're obviously a female in the biotech space. You're the founder and CEO of this company.
Yep.
What's that like being a female in biotech, which tends to be a male-dominated industry? Tell me about your experience in that.
So, when we started this company, we felt like big pharma and big companies kind of had it all wrong. It was very male-dominated. Women just weren't at the upper ranks and we see that across not only the nation, the world, right? And so we knew we were taking a little bit of a risk by just me being the CEO. But I will tell you, Dallas Fort Worth has been amazing. The investor support for me and for Joe has been phenomenal. The support we've gotten from Tech Fort Worth, the UT Health Science Center, and all these organizations, it doesn't matter that I'm a woman, right? I don't feel that I'm treated any differently in this ecosystem, which is how it should be, right? It shouldn't matter that I'm a woman. And so I'm just really proud of our community and of our ecosystem for just supporting entrepreneurs in general.
That's great. So we didn't talk about this as you were kind of building the company, but tell me about your investors. Tell me about how that process worked, raising money, and you do that pitch competition, the investor calls, and then what happened?
So I panicked. Just be clear about that. And I knew it was the foundation of the company. I knew I had to get it right. And I had heard sort of horror stories about, taking money and then losing control of the company or losing the future direction of the company. And so I sat down with some really close friends in private equity, and they coached me, and they helped me write the term sheet, and they were not going to be financially contributing. So I knew they didn't have, their selfish interest in mind. And one of the most important things they coached me on was set your terms, make them fair, and don't budge. And that was really important advice because you get so much pressure from different, angel groups or, venture groups, and they want to make it in their favor. And if going in, look, this is it, take it or leave it. If you believe in me, this is a very fair offer. If you don't believe in me, I'll move on. And so we left some investors behind. We had investors that were waiving very large checks, but they wanted different terms. And we said, sorry. But we went on and raised $1.2 million in the first round, and we closed that within about 3 months. So it was fast, it was efficient. But we looked for investors that believed in us, believed in conscious capitalism, and we're going to be in it for the long term. They weren't looking for just a 3 to 5 year turnaround.
That's great. Well, congratulations. That's not an easy thing to do, to raise that amount of money, but that's great that you had such a good experience. So you mentioned conscious capitalism. Tell me about that, and what does that mean? What does that mean to you, and what has that meant for Eosera?
So going back to sort of big corporate America structure and the focus of any publicly traded company is the bottom line. And that's great to a point. But when it's a relentless focus on what have you done for me lately in terms of dollars and cents, companies can lose sight of what's important. And to me, what's important is people. So whether that's the customers or patients we're trying to treat, the employees that build our business for us, our investors, we wanted to put all of these people at the center of every decision. And the belief in conscious capitalism is that if you have a higher purpose over just money, which in our case is people, the profits are going to follow. But you don't lose sight of what's most important, and the money's going to come. And we are living proof that works.
Very cool. Very cool. So one of the things that we talked about before we started recording was, one of the reasons we do this show is to kind of shine a light on some of the great entrepreneurs that are going on right here in Fort Worth, building great companies, and nobody else is telling their stories. But what advice do you have for somebody who might be listening that's a female and interested in STEM or medicine or biotech? What advice would you give to that potential entrepreneur looking back on your career?
So the first advice is to realize that you don't do it alone, and don't even try. And there are so many people and networks that want to help. And so that's the most important thing we did was start reaching out. And the first step was Tech Fort Worth. I think a lot of entrepreneurs get tripped up sitting in a room by themselves, trying to, write the business plan, trying to think through everything, and you just can't do it alone. And so sort of getting through that fear of asking for help, getting through the fear of realizing you're not going to know everything and you don't need to, and then just jumping in and moving forward.
But
great. It's scary.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt about it. So the question we always ask on Innovate Fort Worth, who is your favorite innovator in Fort Worth?
So I love what Carrie Crow of Melt Ice Cream is doing. I think she's been incredible with creativity in types of flavors of ice cream and how she's bringing that to market and ways of bringing it to market. And so I'm just really inspired by her and what she's doing.
Yeah, we are too. We had her on a few episodes ago. She's fantastic. What's your favorite flavor?
I don't even know. I'll eat all
They're
of
all
them.
good.
I'll
That's
eat all
right.
of them.
That's right. Well, mine is Cookie Crack, but I hear that they changed the name for probably good reasons.
Well.
So, anyway, they're all good. Well, Elyse, thank you so much for joining me on Innovate Fort Worth. If you want to learn more about Elyse Dickerson or about Eosera, visit earcaremd.com to learn more. That's earcaremd.com to learn more. If you like learning about innovation in Fort Worth, please subscribe to our podcast, Innovate Fort Worth. Leave us a review, give us a rating. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. You want to join the conversation? Follow us on social media at HSC Innovates. That's at HSC Innovates. Today's episode was produced by Kendall Rogers and Alex Branch. Our technical producer is Rob Upchurch, and our digital editor is Matt Havlick. Innovate Fort Worth is brought to you by UNT Health Science Center, where we are driven to improve the human condition through a passion for innovation and teamwork.